Welcome to the Mama's Boys podcast. I'm your host, Omar. My fellow host is Silent Mike, also known as Mike Farr. We have merchandise available for Mama's Boys podcast at mamasboyspodcast.com, as well as you can sign up for our Patreon, where we give exclusive bonus episodes and other content on there. You can find that as well on mamasboyspodcast.com.
We're live.
We're done. Oh, we're always live. I'm never off because I'm always on.
You have the phrase dead behind your eyes. I look dead behind my eyes.
Who said that?
Me. Look at me.
In a photo?
I don't know.
Which photo?
No, I'm looking at myself live.
Oh. Don't do that with your tongue, Mike. It's a very wet sound, you know.
Wouldn't there be an issue if it wasn't wet? You know what
I mean?
It
was just super dry. Yeah, you know, I mean, we've spoken before about ASMR.
Yeah.
And
I'm still torn on it.
Yeah, because you feel certain things.
No, I don't. I wish I did, I guess.
You don't feel anything? Have you tried and it just doesn't do anything for you?
I mean, I can't say that I've like put the lights on or down, headphones on, laid down and listen to ASMR.
So you didn't head down, chin up it?
Oh, but I have listened to it.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel nothing.
Okay. Well, sounds to me like you're struggling with a lot of different things, Mike, a lot of internal struggles, and I can sympathize with that.
That's fucking...
You know?
Bro, Kid Cudi singing to me. Sing to me, Cudi. I'm in my zone. I'd love to get Kid Cudi on here. You know what I mean? Connor's not going to talk to us. He's just going to hang out. Yeah, you want Kid Cudi in here.
Cudi's a superstar.
Yeah, you love him here.
I don't know if he'll be able to...
Wow.
Well, not with that attitude.
Wow. You know that?
Just a little boy from Shaker Heights, bro.
He's done a Joe Rogan podcast.
I'm just a kid from Rocky Ridge, you know? I'm right next door to Shaker Heights.
And what's that supposed to mean, Connor?
He's done Rogan?
So he just chases the fame? But I thought he's not a normie because you're not a normie and you only like things that are not normie. So therefore, by you liking Kid Cudi, he also has to be non-normie. And one of the things of being non-normie is not to chase popularity.
Look, dude, I think me and Cudi would get along well, dude. He went to art school.
Checkmate.
Yeah.
He basically went to art school, dude. He's basically my brother.
Yeah, you know, a lot of similarities. Art school.
Cleveland.
Oh, he's from Cleveland?
Yeah, Shaker Heights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bro.
That's why I said I was from right next door, bro. We're neighbors, man.
Okay. Hey, Mike, do you think the world is fair?
No, bro. Yeah, no.
Why do you say that?
So I think I've been thinking a lot about like destiny and things lately. I have no actual reserve or answer for it because obviously no one does, and I don't know if I believe in it. A lot of the issues is I don't know if I believe in things. I thought about things at some point I did, and I'm like, because everyone says right, something happens, I'm like, what's meant to happen will happen. Like that's just a self-justification for some shitty that just happened, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I like that, but I also don't know if I like that if I play all my cards right, that the right thing happens. Right. That's what I've been built into me through sports is that if I'm a good person, I do the right thing. I treat others well. I do this. I work the hardest. I do this. You know, you play all your cards right. Good things happen, which isn't the case. And that's what the biggest pill I have issues swallowing because life isn't fair. If life was fair, you play your cards right. You're a good human. You do the right things. You treat people the right way. You do all like I do good for others. I try to whatever, then good comes. Karma or whatever it might be. And that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
I think it's a big crock of shit. I agree with you. It's a fallacy. And I was reading a book. One of the economists was talking about it. I think his name is Avner Offer, I believe is his name. But I want to read the definition of the fallacy. And so it's called the just world hypothesis or the just world fallacy. The just world hypothesis or just world fallacy is the cognitive bias that a person's actions are inherently inclined to bring morally fair and fitting consequences to that person, to the end of all noble actions being eventually rewarded and all evil actions eventually being punished. And I think that's the very important caveat right there.
Right.
Eventually, all evil actions eventually being punished.
Right.
And so we see that, and I think we all do have that bias. You see someone that's homeless, and what do you think? He fucking deserves it, right? Like even whether you admit it or not, when you see someone succeed, you think to yourself, oh, he might, like, what does he have? And sometimes that's why that seem to leave the book fooled by randomness. That whole concept of just randomness in general, we don't like to think that the world's as chaotic as it is. And so our brain attempts to rationalize what happens to us, what we see happen. And that's why for some people, there's that big book. I don't know if it's quite a self-help book. I didn't read it, but the title of the book was essentially, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? Because people that view the world in a very black and white sense, that yes, there's karmic justice, or the world ought to be fair or is fair, they can't comprehend when something happens. So when, let's say, an attack happens, when a tragedy happens, when something happens in their personal life, it just doesn't make sense in their little framework. Yeah. And I actually operate, and they've measured different, portions of society, like who believes more in a just world and who doesn't. Like the world is absolutely just, everything works out the way it is. And, those that are less likely to believe in it are, more likely to be slightly jaded, all those other things.
I'm jaded as fuck.
We'll see the world through a different lens. That's all I would say. Sure. And so what I guess what I'd say about myself at the very least is I see through the bullshit, because I do think there's a marketing strategy that's been told to us top down, ingrained into our brain via society, the way we're raised, that what do? You go to school, you do this, you do that. You have this result. You're guaranteed that concept of upward mobility. If you just keep working hard enough, eventually you're going to make it. It's like, to a certain extent, it's much like sports. I think sports is a great analogy. You could set yourself up, right, Mike? You train, 18 hours a week? You play basketball. You listen to your coach perfectly. You get enough sleep. You do everything right. You do everything in your power for that ultimate outcome. So what's the just end of that? Making it on the team.
Or a win.
Yeah, a win, going to the NBA, but it doesn't always work out. And so that separation between your expectation and reality for a lot of people, I think, blows their mind. But also, I think it justifies the way people treat other humans when we talk about thinking that if someone has something shitty happen to them, they deserved it. And actually, they carried out, I don't want to get in, it's a whole big conversation, but they've repeated this psychology test that involves a rape scenario. And basically, the summary of the test is that the individuals where they take them through a test, if they believe the woman basically deserves it, then the rape in their mind is justified. Ooh. Yeah, and so, but they've repeated the study. Where it's not just like a one-off and like, oh, wait a minute here. Yeah. It's just the way our brain works, where bad things happen, and we seek to start thinking, well, was he a good person? Oh, this person was. To put it another way, it's like, yes, being overweight will increase the risk of heart attacks, stroke, heart disease, and all those things. But sometimes it happens where you have, a heart attack and you might be overweight and it might be unrelated. Let's say you have a congenital, issue going on with genetically. You. And so we think, he deserves this. Like, well, maybe actually it could be. 4
Doritos, he was lazy, he was whatever.
Yeah, right? So.
Yeah, I think how you said like our society and whatever's going on right now causes us to think that way, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's ancient because you go through all the mythology of
not current society, so it's society in general.
Maybe, yeah. Because I was going to say that the concept itself is so ingrained in every culture that I can imagine. My school took a lot of books that were religious texts or otherwise, and mythology, and took it as mythology. But basically, we studied them all as books. Yeah. We didn't study them as religion because my school is non-religious, which is actually really cool. And it opened my eyes because I was kind of raised into a Catholic world. So when you're going to Catholic school on Sundays, you're reading it as it's a law, right? Or you're reading it as it's your life. Yeah. And then at my school, we'd read the Bible, New Testament, Old Testament, Norse mythology, Taoism, everything, India, everything as book, and all of them have that concept. And it's hard to say, and it's hard to say like why. Well, it's also a self-justification why you should be a good human, right? In a way, like, oh, I'm going to be a good human because these good things are going to come to me.
Well, they call it reciprocal morality, right? Which is how society functions. I think so.
Yeah, but then what's the counter? The counter to not believe in it, then everyone's going to be a piece of shit.
Oh, for sure. But it's one of those things where it's like you have to be aware of the curtain, the magic behind the screen that happens when someone does a magic trick. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, well, what happens there? A society needs individuals to believe in a just world, that it occurs for them to operate and obey the laws. Yeah. Because if you don't, if you could see through that, the fact that, let's say, when it comes to crime, that different people can be sentenced different ways, or that you might be treated just forget the way you look, the way you talk, all these various factors. not every person is treated the exact same via, a similar circumstance. So once you accept the fact that everything's not quite just, things start to crumble a little bit, and society needs a certain sense of order. So I understand the origins of it, of why it needs to be put in place. But then I think it leads to certain cognitive bias that occurs within humans that can be detrimental, such as our social positions when it comes to certain things, like with regards to the homeless, or even there is some research, I would have to read more up on it, which is even concept when it comes to individuals getting sick, how we regard that, right? When we look at lifestyle, we seek to try and explain it immediately. And of course, we're humans, we want to rationalize it, but sometimes some things happen without any just cause.
Yeah.
And that is actually often the case. And humans will, in an attempt to justify the way they do things. So let's say like, oh, we conquered this person. Well, it's better because we brought technology here. Yeah. We brought this, we brought that. I'm like, well, the simple fact is you murdered, I'm making this up, 100,000 people. Sure. It's like, so you can say whatever you want, like what the end effect of that was, but we could convince ourselves, I think, almost of anything to paint ourselves as saints and other people sinners.
Of course, that's just human nature also. But and I struggle with this a lot right now, even like not why should I be a good human or why, but why things happen. And a lot of it is just a randomness or chaos, but through routine of, okay, I'm going to do the routine. I'm going to try to make decisions, I think, business-wise, lifestyle-wise, even day-to-day, like you kind of said, little things, opening the door, try not to judge someone for the situation they're in, smiling at someone, saying thank you to your server at a restaurant, like genuinely,
yeah,
just say just like saying thank you. And I'm no saint either, because I think because of that bias or like the cultural thing inside me, I'm not, no one's truly altruistic. Like, I think I want to be a good human because I want good things to happen to me. And I don't know if I believe in karma per se, but that's just all we know. I guess it's the only option. Yeah. The only option is to believe in that. For me, at least in my head, that's the only option to believe in. And the only option for me is to do what I think is right. Yeah. Because otherwise I'd be a fucking psychopath. Like I think I don't know what the other option is. Like you said, not only societally, but within you, then what's crumble? Like what's the basis of every action I make every day? And for me, it's to do business the right way. It's to spend my time the right way. It's to spend my energy on the people I think that are worth it. It's to be nice to people genuinely. And it's little things. It's little things. Smiling at someone, saying what's up, being as genuine as I can in my day-to-day activities. But I just don't know the opposite, the other route.
Well, so that's
what I struggle with. Literally, currently, within the last 3 months, I've been struggling with shit like that in my head.
I think so. There's a few different interesting things I was reading on the plane. I just saw there's like different magazines, and one was Scientific American, where they're getting into the evolution of humanity, and actually, it's really fascinating stuff where they're talking about the fact that Homo sapiens, as we know, as us humans. We're one of several. Now the theory is like I didn't even know this, that European and Indo-European blood, there's about 2% Neanderthal blood within those that are from that area. Yeah. But there's also a whole bunch of different, let's say, quasi-human or human-like apes that were around that time, hundreds of thousands of years ago. And why did Homo sapiens emerge victorious? And was it even something where we were necessarily the best suited for the job, right? Sure. The most, let's say the most, how do we say, for lack of a better word, the most moral or
fit to take on
actually
the future.
Our conquering mindset. And that's why one of the articles, which was cool, is war inherent to us? Now, murder, violence, yes, but actually they're trying to figure out where large-scale warfare, when it started taking place in human society, and the way they dated it. And there's, I think they call them doves versus hawks. There's two types of anthropologists, and the hawks put forth that it's within our nature, it's in our DNA, warfare, we're built for that. And then the doves, on the other hand, say, taking a look at chimpanzees and so forth, where there are certain cases where chimpanzees actually have gathered in gangs. And
like eating each other and shit. There's some apes that eat each other.
Exceptionally rarely. So the guy that wrote it was in the camp of the doves, and he made some very strong arguments that the advent of modern society, agriculture, and a lot of other things, it actually could be something that's not inherent within us, but something that, much like any other trait that's developed over time, whereas a human, whether it be a genetic component, so those basically that are willing to conquer and take what they need in order to survive are the ones that survived. But if you think about this crazy concept, so we got Homo sapiens, let's say Neanderthals, let's just make it up, right? That there was another human-like species around the same time of us that was actually benevolent, and they were more egalitarian society.
got fucked up and
and
they're
they
gone.
just got conquered, and we actually are the brutal ones that survive. So the concept of when it comes to humans, when it comes to warfare, when it comes to how we regard things, one of the things they're talking about in the time of hunter-gatherers, when it was small bands, when it was, let's say, less than 10 people or whatever, 20 people, roaming around small little pockets, there's 2,000 people. Well, their morality represented more an egalitarian, which meant that every member was equal in their society. Eventually, as things became larger, then there was a chieftain, there's a leader that they looked up to. And then we get into that concept of reciprocal morality where, well, I'm not going to do something to you because I don't want you to do it to me.
Right. But rather than I'm going to do good to you because I'm going to do good to you.
Yeah. For myself, I actually do feel the way that I put it forth and the way I do currently feel about it. Anything that I want to accomplish, what makes me tick and what makes me feel excited, alive, and most proud to be human doesn't have to take away from any other human. And that's what I mean, is what truly makes me happy to try and create art, to try and when I, read books, listen to music, when I try and create art, the things that make me feel most alive or most fulfilled are things that no one else needs to suffer from, you know? And so the way I usually think about it, and I actually had a conversation with someone about this, is my actions, if they bring me satisfaction, then is there any negative outcome? Well, if I derive satisfaction and someone else doesn't feel good as a result of that, is my happiness, does that justify their pain? And often, in my opinion, yeah, we like certain things, but for me, it never ticked. Like even little things, this is going to sound weird, but playing Grand Theft Auto, I never got or derived satisfaction. Vice City, Grand Theft Auto, where that game, where like you could kill hookers, you could do this, you could do that. I just thought it as senseless. Like I would see that and I'm like, it just doesn't make sense in my head. Like the whole, guilty pleasure where it's like things that you want to do. And it just never ticked in my head.
That's Connor's favorite game, dude.
Yeah. And so, yeah. Well, I think some people have repressed thoughts of what they'd rather do. I think maybe one of the things is I was told by my mom to, always be myself, like say what I feel, mean what you say, all those things. And so I don't feel like there's anything that's being missed, like there's a hidden dark element. I can be an asshole, absolutely. That's no question about it. But I think because I'm experiencing all those things and I'm vocalizing them, I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. And so not only reciprocal morality, I do believe inherently humans, if you look at a lot of children, once obviously they're taught, some people say like, oh, all humans are good from the get-go. I'm like, well, you look at kids, they're a little bit of shit disturbers, like just the way that they act because they don't know right from wrong.
Sure.
But I think humans with our empathy, we can understand, much like some other creatures, like elephants are a really good example, dolphins, where just the way that they act and the way they unify with one another. I think biology, if you want to put it another way, I think we're wired to try and help each other succeed. So you could call that reciprocal morality where we think about it. But I think intuitively, we know that I can't succeed unless everyone else succeeds. Yeah. And so it's ingrained within us. And I think some things, so not to get in a whole ramble, Mike, before you go on, but like, I think some ways that the current model of society is set up or has been for the last several thousand years would be inferior to the time when we were hunter-gatherers and we all, once again, the whole egalitarian idea. Together. Well, I can't let you suffer because I wouldn't want, if I was suffering, for that to happen. So it's much more clear. Whereas for us right now, if we see a homeless person on the street, what do? We just walk on by because we know it's like, well, I can help him out, but what's it going to do for me? Well, maybe I'll do that because I don't want that eventually to happen to me, but we don't know that. The one-to-one isn't as close and doesn't exist. Whereas back in the day, 30,000 years ago.
I think it's more complicated than that now because of external factors.
Well, just world theory, I think also.
Maybe, but back in the day, we're worried about not finding food together. We're worried about wild animals coming at us together. We're in like a homeless situation, like you're talking about. The dangers aren't food and the dangers aren't shelter. The dangers are humans. Right? We're worried about other mean people in our society.
Well, so Mike, okay, so you're saying whether or not we would help someone out? Or
the dangers of, because you were talking about, I want to protect you because I want you to protect me in our Neanderthal world. Yeah. But that's because a tiger's coming in and I want you to have my back and not run away.
Right. And then in modern society, you're saying
dangers are different. right? I don't need you to protect me if I'm in a one. It is a status thing.
But that's what I'm saying.
But two, the dangers they're different themselves. If you and I, in an apocalyptic situation, modern day apocalyptic situation, I think we'd be more likely to help that homeless person because we have a common.
I don't know.
I think so because
you guys both think okay. So I think that's that might be where we disagree.
It's obviously on an individual case, right? Because people think differently. But at least for me, I would be more likely in that situation because now we have an external factor and a common enemy, which goes back to agreeing with your point that back in the day, one reason I think the best way to build a team, have true teamwork and have people work together is that make sadly a common enemy. That's why there's rivals in sports. Literally, that's literally why there's rivals in sports because the three of us are going to band together and we're going to crush every podcast in iTunes, which is just actual fact. But besides that, and that's the same
that's
thing.
That's a just world.
Right. But so back in the day, we're fighting these saber-toothed tigers. We're worried about the food. We're worried about not getting the flu together. We're trying to take care of each other. Where nowadays, because of how society is and how fruitful it is, right? Like, especially if you're born into any kind of privilege, you're not worried about a meal. You and I have never worried about a meal in our life. We've never worried about a fucking tiger jumping in our tent and ripping us down.
The question I have for you, and I see Connor, let me just say I'm going to give you a compliment to our boy, Con Air. You're so respectful because I think you want to say something, but you're waiting for both of us to finish. I love it. I just want to say that just before I go on. Just a quick thing I do want to add to that. My question when it comes to that, and maybe I'll let Connor take over with his thoughts, would be the following. Do we view each human as being truly human? And what I mean by that is that I do think that we have that bias inherently within us, that when we see a homeless person, I think a lot of individuals feel like that person's less than us. And so I personally feel that in an apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic society, if something would happen, we would immediately start evaluating people based obviously on their skill set, who is the most skillful, therefore they're the most valuable. And there is maybe some merit to that where you need to survive. So you need to know the doctor. Like if we ration food, if we only have enough food for 5 people and there's 10 people in there, it's like, are we going to let the doctor eat the food or are we going to let the person that has no discernible skill, right? There would be some hard choices. But in today's society, are all humans viewed as being human would be the question. Whereas I'd put forth that 40,000 years ago, where you need every member to survive, that every human would be viewed as, because you have that intimate connection.
And more people had skills.
Yeah, they put it this way, that only 168, I forget the amount, 160 to 170 people you can have a genuine connection with as humans before it just takes up too much space in our brain and we can't have that amount of connections. All of us have met way too many people. So I think we don't view all humans as humans. So I question in a post-apocalyptic society how we regard each human.
We're also way more self-absorbed today. Because, like, you see that person on the street, and you're like, oh, like, I wish I could help you, but I'm trying to pay my own bills. I got rent to pay.
I'm busy.
I want to fucking eat steaks and whatever, too. Like,
me feeding my dog foo-foo, the best damn food it can eat, is above and beyond you trying to survive in my head. Like, honestly.
Fake busy. Oh, I have an appointment in 10 minutes. I can't.
Yeah. How many times does that happen? Even last night, that guy.
Yeah.
Like, asking for whatever. It's like, no, I don't have cash. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Like,
and there are multiple factors going into what you think is being a good human, what you're not, or what you self-justify as being a good human, right? Like many people say it, and part of it is true, who's to say, but all right, I'm going to give this guy $5 and he's going to buy booze and his, his life's already whatever. And then what you do in other cases to donate food to a local charity or whatever it might be to actually hopefully help. But the answer there too is I think some of the answers in Neanderthal days were just written out for you. How you can help the group and how you can help each other was so much simpler than it is now.
Our weakest link was a lot more important back then.
True, everyone had skills.
Yeah. So now, I guess you would look at the weakest link being like homeless people and bums, and there's just a lot of them.
Sure.
And what can you do?
That's I guess for me is like sometimes it's
one assumption that we're making just moving forward, because it has been shown that some people that are homeless, that are destitute, that they do have a lot of skill sets, but at some point in their life they may have been waylaid. Like someone that is homeless might have far more skills than I actually currently have, right? There are examples where someone's a former doctor, this and that. So just because someone's homeless doesn't necessarily mean that they have no skills.
Skills are less important nowadays, is what I was saying. That if you have a family of 10 Neanderthals, everybody has skills to hunt, gather, build a tent, whatever. And nowadays we don't. So in your case, when you're saying we build a
post-apocalyptic
or even
hierarchy.
now, or even now, because people like, what are my real skills? I don't fucking know.
Our skills are specific to our society, though. Like that's why post-apocalyptic, like being good at sales. I'm like,
it's different than survival.
Yeah,
right. That's
marketing, like your whole fucking career just went out the window. So like some real basic skills would then be more important. And so
that's what I mean, though. Like, it's way different. It's way different skill set to survive.
You'd be call everyone a normie, and then it would just be like, you guys don't understand what good music is. Everyone's like, we don't have enough food to eat, and Connor's like, yeah, but your music's whack, bro.
Yeah, anyone in entertainment. I mean, obviously that shifts the whole world. But what I meant about post-apocalyptic, the reason I brought that up is to have a common enemy, not survival per se. But I'm just saying,
do we need a common enemy? You think, Mike? And I hear what you're saying.
I do.
Or do we need just a common goal?
It's the same to me. Yeah. It's the same to me.
But enemy means we want to crush the enemy, defeat the enemy. It's us versus them. Whereas a goal
enemy could be any task. To me,
okay.
I say enemy loosely. It doesn't have to be a human or something that's going to kill us.
So it could be like a goal.
Yeah,
you're saying that. So it fit in that. So I'm just making this up. Let's say us desiring to try and travel interstellar. Interstellar travel would be a goal. Is that it or no?
Yeah, I mean, I guess
to unite humanity.
But it's different nowadays too, because we're talking about a family of 10 Neanderthals, or we're talking about 8 billion people on the planet.
That's not a direct pressure. A direct pressure would be like,
that's more of an enemy too. Food,
your
death.
landlord's bugging you.
Yeah. No, I was just talking about what unites humanity. Where we said,
I don't think that does, because we, like Connor said, that's not like that's not something that
to me. I view it as a pressure, and what I mean, I view it as an inevitability due to environmental concerns, overpopulation. That
I don't know if people feel that pressure though.
No,
generation.
Do people have enough foresight to see into the future? No, like my generation might be fine, but like 3 generations from now, we're going to be fucked. I think that's why there's not enough pressure on things like climate change. I'm not someone that denies climate change. I actually think it's very real. The magnitude, the effect, I don't know, but I do know that it's something that has a concern for future generations, where we don't know everything that we're doing right now. We don't know what it might do 200 years from now. And the fact that we're not going to be around 200 years from now makes it something we don't care about. And that might be another bias that we have, immediate versus long-term for our society.
I think it's impossible as a human to care about the same thing as a tiger running at you.
But that just means to me that we don't deserve as humans to survive.
Sure. I mean, you can take it however you want.
That's all. But that's what I mean. It's like thinking big picture, like they talk about humans trying to go above and beyond, travel planets. When we were Neanderthals, or let's say we were back in the day, our concerns were much more immediate and obvious. And that's good because we know what we should do. But us together with the large framework that we have, I think it is quite clear some things that we should focus on, but we don't feel that we should focus on them. That are the big things. They're the equivalent things to move society forward.
Sure, but the factors are just so different. Organizing 10 people to move areas because snow's coming, or because of a famine in the area, and organizing 8 billion to try to focus.
But we don't even need 8 billion, like with
and people, I'm sure there are camps somewhere working on traveling to different universes and things, right? So I
think we're just so caught up by, like, as you're saying though, Mike, like, you know, what type of car do I have? Like, what's my house look like?
I don't even know. Sure, we're obviously being materialistic is a Western thing, an American thing too. But
it is a world thing. I'm not trying to.
But things are just like we're not worried about survival, so we have other tasks at hand. You know, we have other tasks at hand that we don't need a team for always.
Yeah, do you think that's a good thing though, that we focus on maybe now that society is established and we aren't hungry, right? We aren't going to be attacked by lions, as you say, or tigers, that instead of focusing on the bigger issues that potentially could be threats and will be very important in the future, we're waylaid by things that are of no consequence.
I guess the question would then be is how many people are actually focusing on those? Because that's also human nature and self-justification. Like, all right, I'm going to go over here and do my work. I assume Elon Musk is figuring that out for me.
Oh,
you know,
no,
because there are 8 billion people. That's not my expertise, and that's not. So that's like me.
I agree with you on that.
Just as like maybe not even political, but just like as a human, I'm like libertarian. Like I take what's come at me and I deal with it on my own. Like these are those laws. Like, all right, I'm going to figure it out on my own. I expect you to figure it out on your own. And so, if that was the route I took in career or education, then sure, maybe I'd be more into figuring out how we can live on Mars. But for now, I figure out how I can be a good human in a small case. Like I said, like How can I open a door, and how can I hopefully make somebody smile? Hopefully someone has some dark thoughts like me. They can listen to this podcast and be a little bit happier or whatever it might be, rather than how can I survive my great grandkids.
Yeah.
That's just not my thought process ever.
Yeah. That is my thought process. That's why, Connor, before I go on, sorry to bother you, where Cash Green, he's like, all our contributions that we do now, like, what's it going to mean? Or he's talking about, that's very existential, his thoughts. But like, that is where my brain thinks.
Why didn't you go into like NASA or something of that nature then?
The future isn't yet done, bro. Not quite NASA. I do have a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas and a lot of things I do want to do. A lot of things I don't talk about out loud because I believe in doing rather than just talking about them. Yeah. But there are a lot of things that I have planned.
Yeah, I mean, if
this to me is just the beginning.
If those were my goals, which they've just never been in my head, then I probably would have gone that route of some nature and tried to.
I've never thought about family lineage or anything like that.
Yeah, or just, the future society is what I mean.
I've always been more self-absorbed, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of humans are. Yes,
that's a bad thing.
I don't know if it is, and who's to judge whether it's good or bad, and who's to judge that, like you said, fate, destiny, choice, chaos, whatever it is, who's to say humans are supposed to survive? Maybe we're not supposed to head to Mars. Maybe we're supposed to fucking die. Maybe this.
What if we're just a stepping
But if you're that self-absorbed, I'm just saying hypothetically, if by that very nature, if you're so self-absorbed, you'd want to continue to be self-absorbed. So even just by self-preservation mindset, you would want to be able to survive, or maybe like at the least your kids.
No, right? I don't think so. I think you can be self-absorbed and not worry about your kids or your bloodline.
Or your life, like whether it ends or not.
But again, it's 2018. We're not worried about our life.
No. I'm not talking about like I need to spread my genes sort of self-absorbed. It's more like while I have my like 80 to 100 years here, hopefully I get to do everything that I ever wanted to do.
Yeah. No, and I hear you on that. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, though. And I think what Mike was saying, where he said Elon Musk, like jokingly, Elon Musk is going to handle it. I forget what it's called before I go on, but there's that thing where there was a woman being murdered. This was like in New York City, but basically everybody just stood by. It was a collective helplessness that occurred because everyone thought the other person was going to do something. Sure. And we've seen that. And Mike, to your credit, actually, the one time that actually something was going to happen and we're both there, you stepped in. Were there somebody you saw on the beach?
Yeah.
Well, you did. So
our old guy got shoved.
Yeah. So there's some stuff going on, and Mike was the first person to jump in, right? So I'm not at all even remotely questioning you. What I am saying is I feel as a society, we're kind of like that, where we have that learned helplessness. 100%. That I love that quote from Sorry to Bother You, where basically when trying to talk about these big ideas, and these are big ideas where you're totally right, as a Neanderthal, it's far simpler. It's like get food, survive, make fire, mate, right? Where we have those immediate concerns. But as humans, we're evolving so fast with our thoughts, with our technology, that we're quickly eclipsing anything that's the basic primal necessities, but the bigger picture things that will be necessary in the future for us to even continue to survive are things that we all must start thinking about. And I think when they say in Sorry to Bother You, that learned helplessness, where the quote basically is like, if you see a problem and you have no idea how to do anything about it, you just feel helpless. You're not going to do anything about it. And then it's just going to pass over you. And we focus on distractions. And so an idea of that, when we talk about that in the media or just in general, like I'm talking big picture, like the big things we need to focus on, but very small, immediate maybe issues, Mike, would be that whole Colin Kaepernick thing, right? Yeah. But it's like now the controversy is about him and Nike, him and kneeling, rather than the issue that he wanted to bring up, or larger issues in our society that we would all agree upon. There was one, there's a poll done, and I don't want to like quote the actor, this and that, but 97% of Americans agreed basically that they did not want to be spied upon, in their private life. It was unified. The Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter, right? You poll anyone, they agree. And it was a certain level, I forget what the act was specifically, but it had to do with invasion of our privacy, use of our private information by big business, corporations, governments.
Yeah, like a home security deal.
Yeah, so 97% of people agreed that we don't want it. Yet that's an issue that just gets swept under the rug because it doesn't have any legs. It's not going to be covered in mainstream media. These are things that nobody then cares about.
Yeah,
And
those
so
are
I
a
feel,
little different though than Interstellar stuff because one, stuff like that is hard to even conceptualize, let alone
there's layers, Mike.
Yeah, but if you can conceptualize it, then it's very even because it's so far in the future, it's harder to have a passion for, right? It's same thing as the homeless deal, right? Like if there's a homeless guy that's the same dude and he's in front of your house every day, I bet eventually you're going to have a little bit more compassion for that guy because he's in your face rather than conceptualizing and having the passion for all the homeless around the world, right? Like Connor said, we get caught up in our own head, we get caught up in our own thoughts.
And I think that if you had a very different life, Omar, you would have a different view of it. So let's say like
nurture versus nature, you're saying?
If YouTube didn't pan out for you, and you were struggling every month for rent, you're not going to be thinking about these things.
I could tell you, I thought about these things when I was struggling. I can tell you that for a fact.
But struggles very different than the homeless guy too, right?
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't on the street, but like I had like $30,000 worth of debt, and I was like,
but debt is different. Debt's different than not finding a meal. Which is another concept again we can't even relate to know what the thought process is when you're worried about like survival opposed to worried about.
There's nothing in your face.
Yeah,
you every day.
Yeah, or worried about family, or then where it's such a privileged spot that we can worry about the planet through him.
Luxury to be able to do that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you on that. But I think to me, that's an even stronger than argument about the whole concept of not even reciprocal morality, but then what's better for society. Where if we know that someone's suffering that badly, let's just say a homeless individual, right? Where they're getting kicked down so hard, so often, they can't even do basic things, right? Where they can't become a productive member of society. That net change of impacting that person and making them a productive member versus not would be so much more.
But there's no answer. There's no answer too because of how complicated our society is again compared to something in Neanderthal times.
Yeah, but I'm saying we absolutely should not just throw our hands up and I guess I'm gonna do you do your thing, you do your thing, I'm gonna do my thing, and I hope it's all gonna work out.
Yeah, I don't think anyone said that. I don't think anyone said that, or I don't think anyone does that.
No.
I mean, I'm sure there's humans that do that because humans.
I think we have to extend ourselves beyond ourselves now, and I think actually a point I would make. I think morality overall is we become aware, we read various texts, we have more access to more information. I think in general, morality as society has been established, forget the Neanderthals down, forget us early humans as hunter-gatherers, but I mean, when we had society, it's gotten better. The universal moral laws. But if you look at the Old Testament, people read the Old Testament these days and they're horrified, right? Where a whole city just like brutal, that, right?
That's brutal.
Where you could just blow up a whole city. Like the God of that time said, you know what, you guys suck. Like the entire city apparently is sinning. Kill them all, right? Oh, sacrifice your son. Oh, we could talk about slaves here. We could talk about having, multiple wives. Just so many things that maybe today we'd find questionable. That was the Old Testament. Then the New Testament, Jesus, which is a very powerful story, where he comes back and he gets hit. He turns the other cheek. He goes into, not the church, the synagogue, and he overturns the moneylenders. And he's this benevolent force that's above and beyond what we previously conceived in that area of morality. And so I think there is that evolution that's happening. And so we, as a society, as we understand what's going on, we get removed from just ourselves and see the other person for being someone else, like being a genuine human, and we see everyone as humans. That's what I'm saying. And I think
we're not saying any different.
No, and I'm saying going beyond that, then we just start expanding the scope of our morality and what we want to do.
Sure.
That's what I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
We
and
never
so for some people that think Interstellar, other people think, what's my next car going to be? You know?
Well, and I think there's layers to it too, right? If everyone's thinking Interstellar, then we're still not helping the guy that's down on his luck and homeless over here, or the drug addictions and the drug epidemics.
For sure.
I mean, there's so many issues that are going on. Plus, again, like it isn't always easy, especially in America. Although, economics of things, markers are high. Like it's hard to make money. It's not always easy. You have to work. You have to work a certain amount of hours to live any kind of lifestyle. And whether that's super luxurious or not, to even just afford rent in California is hard, right? So you at some point you do have to work and you have to worry about your own, plus family, etc. There's so many other issues that we can't, because the scope of the issues and the scope of our countries, our tribes, right? True. Yeah. But United States is our tribe now, right? To like I said, organize 500 million is a lot much more difficult than to organize 10 to care about one topic and conquer a topic.
All it works with society, though, is like I'm not even requesting 500 million people. Is that there is a, let's say, hierarchy when it comes to knowledge. Certain people that are qualified to do certain things. So we talk about. I'm just making up the Interstellar because I find it fascinating because I'm into that nerdy shit. That's just that's one example. But let's say NASA as a concept, right? We need X number of scientists. It's actually not that amount, right? Not huge. Let's say it's several hundred. Let's say 500, 1,000. You need 1,000 qualified people, and you need $12 billion over 10 years, right? So it's. I'm making up numbers, not Interstellar, but just continuing the exploration of space.
Yeah.
Right, and so colonization potentially of Mars and all these things. So we could approximate what those costs would be. So we don't even need a grand mobilization because you keep. I hear that example.
Well, because these things otherwise are happening. There's plenty of organizations trying to help the homeless. There's plenty of organizations trying to.
And you think it's enough?
No, but that goes to my point is that it's too difficult to organize the 500 million. I've never said it's enough, but the issues are too great and too broad now. And so what are you saying? Because we have NASA and things trying to do that. We have Elon Musk looking at all this stuff, and we have organizations, religious. Religion gets bashed left and right. 2018, but there's plenty of religious groups and churches trying to do things to help the homeless.
No, I think we can all restructure what we personally do, and that's what I mean. The way, the order of priorities with which we try.
I think it depends on who you speak to. Right? I think it depends on who you speak to because I think there's plenty of people that do stuff like that too.
Yeah,
because you can't negate the people that are trying to do good.
Oh, there's so much. Like there's a local to my area. There's a place called St. John's Bakery that does phenomenal work. The church there. A whole bunch of things. There are actively people, I would say, on the fringes of society largely that are trying to make a good deal of change, and they represent the lion's share of people that are trying to contribute good. I'm saying for the masses of people that kind of live through their life, and I've seen numerous examples of this. Either, I would say I've trained probably like 300 to 500 people in my life, and like you get a good idea what they're about, like what they do, or what they contribute, what they believe in. I think there's a small portion of people trying to make a change. I think for the masses, just doing a few additional things can make a significant difference. Much like, so a good example of this.
But that's an easy thing to say. Everyone can do
but
better.
a good example of this would be, if you want actionable, real talk, an idea would be recycling, right? Where here, I don't know what the situation with recycling here is. It depends state by state. I can only speak from a Canadian perspective, the impact that it's had. But you have your garbage, you have your food waste, and then you have your recycling. And so setting up that simple thing where it became then mandatory for humans to do, we're talking about net good now for society, right? So before, everyone dumps their shit into garbage, right? But now that there's recycling, there's food bins, and then there's garbage, the amount of waste that's getting dumped has been reduced significantly. And that's a small thing that each member of society can now contribute towards. They'll create a net positive.
Sure.
And so all those things. Yeah. But you could frame
outside of recycling though.
Me?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I personally want to talk about on a podcast, but I do contribute in some ways. I do volunteer. I don't talk about anything publicly because I don't think that.
I don't know either.
Yeah, because I don't think you're talking like for yourself then.
No, for you.
Oh, for me, yeah, I could talk about it because I don't believe I hate those people that try and use their platform in a way that doesn't feel genuine.
Yeah.
And so they'll be like, well, I'm trying to raise like water for this person. I'm like, well, actually, that increases your clout, then your social media credibility, all those things. I think the unseen hand is the most powerful hand. The thing that which you would do if there's nobody watching is the thing that you should do then always, not just when there's lights on. And so I prefer to move behind the scenes. And so there's that. I could absolutely talk after about some things that I'm passionate about when I said that. So I not only want to talk the talk, I try and walk the walk.
Yeah. I mean, recycling and all that's
a small example, but that's just like a quantifiable example.
Yeah, but that's just so different than
climate change.
Interstellar travel focus.
Yeah, there's layers, right? So like treating each human.
I think that's more than a layer. That's a mile jump.
Well, you need.
Because that's different, like we were talking. That's what I'm saying about
we need the earth. Sorry, go on.
Or rather than getting an expert to try to focus on this thing for the future. The visual of recycling, one, because states make it mandatory, which I think is great, but it makes it a lot easier and convenient to do the quote unquote right thing, rather than us conceptualizing something. Time travel or interstellar travel or whatever it might be, and us not even being capable as a society or as an individual to do something like that. That's a big different, a whole different conversation.
I'm talking the ultimate goal. And when I say interstellar, I mean the future survival of humanity being guaranteed. That's all. So that's like the end amount.
Yeah, but that's
very hypothetical.
Very different
We could rewind it all the way back. There are steps and there's layers. So climate change would be important, or keeping Earth as a sustainable place because we have nowhere else to live. Right, so that's an obvious one, and then you can keep extending it beyond that. So I think it is like a ladder, and there are various steps towards it. I went just right to the top, because to me that's a fascinating one to talk about.
Sure, just how you opened the conversation was about doing good for other humans, just to do good for other humans, and when you go to the extreme, the day-to-day human can't do that.
No, and that wouldn't be expected. I'm just saying.
I know, but you jumped a mile ahead, and that's where you lost me and Connor.
Yeah.
Because the day-to-day, I can't do anything to help Interstellar.
Oh, no. Sorry, and I should say no one's expecting you to.
Yeah,
right.
That was my main talk of organizing 10 people organizing a country.
Sure, and what I'd say is, if we want to talk about percolating, you helping out, I think someone that's homeless out will directly impact then end goal, Interstellar.
Sure,
I think it's all connected. It goes this way.
Yeah, hopefully.
It goes one way, for sure.
Hopefully.
Absolutely, yeah.
If that good things happen to good things happen.
Yeah,
which we already covered and don't believe in.
Because here's a concept that I do struggle with, where I like Stephen Hawkins, who RIP is obviously the most intelligent, but where he talks about the idea that when we try and communicate, I'm just going to go sci-fi quickly for a second and then come back, because I just find it fascinating. So the sci-fi conversation, he says that we shouldn't currently be broadcasting, radio waves out there to potential species, because they might hear it and they might want to just conquer us. And the thought in my head about that, I'm like, okay, cool, I totally get that, is with us right now, we're already in a society that there's a lot of warfare, there's a lot of bloodshed, there's a lot of rivalries. We don't know if 100 years from now, if we're going to be around, or if someone's just going to nuke us, where something catastrophic is going to happen, maybe biological warfare. We don't know, right? Like if I was to ask you guys, do you think humanity will be around in 1,000 years? Would you say definitely, probably, maybe, or I don't know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
1,000 years?
Yeah, there's 1,000. The universe has been around for like 15 billion years. Yeah.
I think there's still. I don't know if
like probably
society as we know it today.
Yeah, but humans will exist.
Some sort of.
Yeah. And you say probably, not definitely.
Yeah, I'd say probably.
Yeah, right. Because there's a lot of concerns with our society.
A meteor could hit us right now.
Yeah.
We're all dead.
And so when we talk about that, it's probably going to happen, I think it's quite clear that as a society becomes more advanced, there has to be not safeguards, but the concept of morality needs to change. Otherwise, as technology improves, it becomes easier and easier to wipe out said society. Now, instead of one person having a nuke, everyone can have some sort of nuke equivalent. So we could talk about nanobots, we could talk about a lot of different things. It becomes easier basically for any one member of society to end the entirety of the civilization. So there needs to be some sort of change with regards to how we view individuals. Otherwise, it's inevitably going to implode. And that's one, when they talk about the Fermi's paradox, why we haven't encountered alien species. Maybe there's some sort of boundary in the future where it's inevitable that a society will cause itself to implode. So the point that I'm making, when they talk about aliens and they talk about them wanting to conquer, if we have that same archaic mindset of how we regard morality or like conquering other individuals, that society probably would have imploded. If we're not even certain in 1,000 years from now we will be around, what can we say about 100,000 years? Or then a society then can travel interstellar. So when I say interstellar, really what I'm saying, it's kind of like that Star Trek concept, where if you look at how humans are in Star Trek, like Jean-Luc Picard, the way they regard one another, it's just changed completely. And I think that would be necessary.
What are you implying, though, that you want some sort of group to be in charge?
No, hell no. You never leave it to an oligarchy, a small group of people to try and change.
So then what are you implying?
It has to be inherent. I think there are certain things. I think art elevates humanity. So I think there are certain things where you're a filmmaker, Connor, right? You love film. I think one of the highest functions of film is to move individuals and see the human condition in every single person. And that's why Akira Kurosawa is my favorite film director. I think on a grand scale, when it comes to these things, bit by bit, the evolution of morality continues to happen. So it's not like a wide sweeping, like big government's going to say right now, like, hey, you got to start helping out homeless people or this and that. Like that never works. I think, I don't want to get hippy dippy, but our collective consciousness of how we feel and how we regard changes over time, either for the better or for the worse. And everything that we do, I do believe, not just world, but either we're contributing towards something that's positive or something that's negative. And we might not get that in return. So you might do something that's positive and it might never work out for you, but the impact that you have in society will be something that moves it forward. And that's why when you said about what I do, or like, why not just work for NASA? Well, that's why I'm comfortable with doing what I've done in fitness, because at the very least, from a very small portion, me contributing something positive to the fitness community, trying to give good evidence-based information, to me is a net positive, right? And so all our actions hopefully become more of a net positive, rather than just it's a net positive for me, rather than a net positive for everyone.
I get what you're saying, but there's always going to be the bad egg, and there's always going to be the naive person or naive people on the road to let that bad egg rise to the ranks in like society, and then able to get in a position to push the button to just end everything.
Yeah, because it's not just world.
Oh no, no, absolutely. Yeah, that's why it's even scarier.
Conceptually, it's great, right? Yeah. Conceptually, it's great that we hope that everyone does.
That's
good.
My fear, Connor. Yeah, and so I think
if I thought about that all day, I would get nothing done.
No, but I do believe ultimately in the good of humans and the things that we're doing, and that's why I am hopeful, right? But you hit the nail on the head where it takes just one bad person, right? In this hypothetical situation, I'm just making up shit now, right? Like, let's just say biological weapons 500 years from now.
Anything, Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
The example of Barry, going through his whole life, rising the ranks of society from being just like a scoundrel to being the husband of a queen, to try and like he's trying to get all of her money, right? And they just like kept letting him go further and further and further in society, and it ended up being bad for him, or actually good for him in the end. I don't know.
Yeah, he's Barry Lyndon's a fascinating talk, and we could totally get derailed on that. I think in closing, because I didn't want to derail this conversation, I just find it fascinating, right? That I think it's scary for us, and I think as humans, we basically have needed to evolve way quicker than maybe from a biological perspective or like a sociological perspective it's possible. And what I mean is, if we didn't have world-ending devices, like let's say if this was still 500 years ago, hypothetically, and just technology just took forever to change, and humans just like everyone just made a positive change, blah, 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 blah. Maybe then it wouldn't be such a concern. It's like, but dude, it's like the concept of AI. Like there's that, the Joe Rogan, like Elon Musk, where he talks about that, and you see when he talks about AI, like he's not fucking around. Like where I think he sees obviously a lot of those potential end games for humans. And there's so many.
I think it happened. I don't know if it's confirmed or not, but I believe they made some robots in the Silicon Valley, put them in a room, and they created their own language.
Oh no, for sure. No,
they blew them all up.
Mike, for sure.
Yeah, and that was within the last 6 months. So like AI, like Elon kind of said, it's here. There's no regulation for it. And Elon's kind of on a whole nother level, thinking that's literally the mission of man to get there, but that's neither here nor there. A lot of it's neither here nor there to me, to be honest. Like I said, like I go day to day, do the best I can to be the best I can to myself and others, and that's all you can hope for. To hope for a whole society to always do net positive, I think is a great sentiment.
Next generation be better than the previous generation. That's it in a nutshell. And continuously,
that's a great sentiment. I mean, that's a great, but
we can all do our part, and we can all do our part towards that. Is what I'm saying. Is it going that way fast enough for the technology? So when we talk about those things, like when we say about like AI, will we be prepared for some of these potential catastrophic things to occur? Yeah, in the timeline. I'm like, as humans, it feels like to me, looking at the timeline of even things like climate change, I'm like, when you talk about procrastinating, it's like, I don't know what to do, or like, why should I even do that? It's like, we're waiting until the last fucking second for every single thing. And that's why the question is like, that I wonder about is, do humans even deserve to survive is the question. I know that's like real trippy, but
it's not trippy at all. It's not trippy at all, but I think it's just it's all obviously just conceptual. And like I said, what's applicable, and what's applicable is more like what you said. Like, well, I think I did good because I do this and that. I try to help people be healthier, and if everyone is too busy conceptualizing and not busy applying, then we're stuck in the same place we are.
Yeah, I think it's so. with most religions where they have that immediate one-to-one, do good because then you go to heaven, which is a beautiful concept because it immediately tells you that whatever you do here, where you might not understand why you should help a homeless person out, it doesn't affect me. I don't give a fuck. Like, who cares about his life? He deserved what he got. It's like, well, you do good in your life, then a net positive at the end. So I'm saying Interstellar here, right? Like something that would be good for all of us to guarantee the future survival that might be harder to conceptualize. That's where I think one of the powers of religion comes into play, where it's saying like, yeah, you help out that homeless person that you don't give a fuck about, well, you're going to make it into heaven, buddy, and you're going to live forever.
Yeah, it's a basic way to teach morals, which I think is great. I've talked about that in the past too.
Incentivize humans.
Yeah. Being raised Catholic for a bunch of years, I think it taught me how to treat people. And sure, there's some culty things and some financial things that go weird with every religion, and a lot of small groups that aren't even religious. But if you can teach morals in a good way, be religious. What do I care?
Yeah. What were you going to say, Connor?
Going off your point, do we deserve to be alive?
You got to say the badass line, like Unforgiven style, Connor. Deserve ain't got nothing to do with it.
If we, let's say our planet explodes, totally hypothetical, from, let's say we didn't recycle enough or whatever. Like that somehow.
That's such a. So I was drawing obviously a shitty causal chain. Well, it's not that simple, but I do believe it percolates that way.
Then maybe we don't, and our society gets completely wiped out.
No.
And then eventually, in time, some other society somewhere else on some other planet, time's going to keep going on.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So maybe we don't deserve.
Yeah. Do you think
that's actually? So I don't want to get it because this is a whole other thing. There is a sci-fi concept I'm working on. I told you this, Connor. It's called the Star Wars Killer. I'll just leave it at that. But it deals with that very concept where I personally feel like I have the hope, and hope is necessary. When you see her, they talk about in To Kill a Mockingbird, courage is doing the right thing, even though when you're licked, it's like I have hope that things are going to work out. There are, to me, clear warning signs where I'm like, I don't know if we're going to make it, but still fighting the good fighter, thinking that we're moving the ball forward, I think is very important. The Star Wars Killer concept that I have is we actually don't make it.
Yeah. Do you think you think everything percolates? Do you think everything percolates just because of the just world theory? Like, no. Because there's a bad egg and the chain's broken, then it doesn't. Then your recycling doesn't lead to this guy doing this and that guy doing that and that guy doing that. I got
you, Mike. What do you mean by a bad chain? Because the idea is if there's 8 billion people, if there's one person not recycling, who cares?
No.
So what do you mean?
You're talking about recycling leading to fresher water, leading to newer, healthy energy, leading to that scientist doing this thing, and then eventually up the chain we get up to Interstellar because the NASA guy. I did my part here, so the NASA guy could do his part there.
And a larger point that I'd say about that, Mike, it's how we regard things then. By doing such actions, I think our actions inform our morality. So when we do good things, we see the world a little differently. So now the homeless person is a human to us rather before not being a human. So when I say percolating, I mean percolating of morality. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about percolating up the train because that's what you argued earlier.
They're tied hand in hand.
Yeah, because that's what you argued earlier when I said I can't. One, I'm not interested in. One, I'm not an expert to help interstellar travel. So, and then you said, well, then you recycle or you do this to lead to that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're talking about applying in that case, not conceptually.
I think they're both tied, though. You doing it then will directly help it, but then by you doing it, the future, it's easier to bind for each person moving forward. Now you believe in it more. Now it becomes easier for you to do it.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, you get a bad group or a bad chain or a bad egg or whatever along that huge path from recycling to the guy working on interstellar travel. Because of humanity, that's just or chaos, right? That's how it goes.
Yeah,
we're none of it's flowing.
None of it's guaranteed. No, none of it.
You said you think it percolates. That's what I'm wondering. Do you actually think it percolates, or do you think it percolates because I'm doing good, the rest is going to do good?
No. I think no.
Which is where we started.
No, it's chaotic in that it's a variable. It's a percentage probability.
So then you don't think it percolates. You're hoping it percolates.
No. It's because nothing's guaranteed. You're asking for absolutes in this case, but I'm saying
what I'm saying is I'm bringing it back to the just world theory because we're talking. You started this entire thing with because I do good, I hope good happens to me.
Right, and I don't expect good to happen for me.
Good either.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, of course not. I think the better analogy for you, Mike, talking about basketball, is you prepare and you practice and you play as hard as possible and you listen to your coach so you can play your best game. That doesn't guarantee you're going to win, but it guarantee the best setup that you will win.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you were talking about percolating upstream.
Yeah, it will. So your actions will.
You said you think it will percolate upstream.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
what I'm saying is that because of the just world theory, that you think you do good at this level, that everyone will do good at their level, and then it'll go up.
But not because they want it for themselves. So you thinking that a just world theory, it's the theory that karma is eventually going to come back. I'm saying we're going to ascend even beyond those very notions. And so now we're doing it for not just myself, but for other people too.
Yeah, but
so
you're still relying on
a
other
just
people.
world is the concept of karma.
Sure.
So I do something, it comes back to me.
Sure.
I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing this for the love of humanity.
Yeah, but then you're also just putting in trust that everyone else believes that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a lot of trust, and that's why I used the word hope. I didn't say it's a guarantee.
No, you said you thought it percolated up, and then I was wondering why you think that.
Yeah, no, I do think it will percolate up. You're saying, will it definitely happen that way? And I said, I don't. Yeah,
I'm not saying definite.
I think it will. Yeah,
I think it's unlikely. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, so what do you think?
Like I said, there's too many chains. There's too many links from the dumbest version of recycling all the way up to interstellar travel. I think there's too many links to be missed.
Yeah,
and you can do everything right up into your life, at least like what you think is right up into your life, and then like let's say something happens to you specifically individually, like Jerry's wife cheated on him. Now Jerry hates everyone.
Yeah.
And Jerry thinks of you, the bum on the street, as trash.
Or we could just be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, this is dumb. It sounds dumb, but what recycling's bad. Like, all right, well, we just made the whole society recycle. That's why I said recycling is dumb, but I don't have another instance because I'm not a NASA scientist. So don't roll your eyes at me just because I can't conceptualize. But say you're heading down one path.
There's murkier things. I agree with you.
They're heading
that would
down
be harder.
one path of what they think will lead us to travel or inhibiting another planet, but that was way wrong. But we just spent the last 300 years and now it's too late. So we didn't search this other thing. I mean, you can just be wrong. You could literally.
When that rises when we go wiped down.
Yeah, we literally thought this path was the right one, but there's too many variables in everything we did.
Yeah. No, I agree. So you're asking to make a prediction on things where, calculating a probability of that would be incredibly hard to do.
On many factors. I'm saying that there's too much randomness in all of it.
You cannot deny the randomness, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it then, because you're setting yourself up much like the basketball analogy or another one, a thing you could think of. Because you say chains, like when I talk about percolating, let's say now you have 1 billion strands, and then out of those strands, then like let's say a couple 100,000, couple 100 million or whatever, there's some bad strands. So some make it, some don't make it. But as a whole, when it goes like this, there's so many different chains that even if different links get cut off, it's still moving this way.
Not always. So it's a link that's in crucial to lead to another.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is I think the path to something too like interstellar travel is pretty clear. Like it's not something where it's like, well, if we spend 300 years researching quantum physics, is it going to bite us in the ass? I'm like, I think we know some of those answers already.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I don't. Like
so
I said, I'm not a NASA expert. I can't say what we know and don't know. But what I'm saying
I think
is
the path is that path of what leads to what is clear. So
I don't know
so the idea. So to put it this way, it's like, if we didn't cancel NASA's funding going to the moon and going to Mars, would we be further advanced in our exploration of space? Of course we would be, right?
Yeah.
I think there are very obvious things. Now, the causal link, you're
the difference
right.
of doing and not doing, not taking the wrong path. I'm talking about potentially taking the wrong path for a long time and focusing in the wrong areas. I guess focusing on the wrong areas is much different than doing and not doing.
I will say I see what you're saying in that there are some very nuanced topics. So when I talk about climate change, that one's pretty obvious, right? Like recycling. We could think of a hypothetically gray scenario of investing time where maybe it's not going to work out and maybe it was the wrong thing. I can see you on that. But I think as a whole, there are enough real world things that we should be doing that wondering or worrying about the hypothetical, if we do this for 300 years, is it going to come to bite us in the ass, is dealing with such a hypothetically improbable situation to lead to inaction.
We just spent an hour talking about conceptual. So I'm bringing conceptual and now you're bringing it back to applicable.
What do you mean?
We just spent an hour talking about all these hypotheticals and conceptual. So I brought up
the probabilities. So if I told you had a 1 in 100 chance of something happening to you or a 1 in a billion, which would you be more scared of?
I know, but now you're bringing it back to applicable. If we're talking about applicable, the conversation is over.
It's conceptual.
Right. Okay.
So all what I'd say with that, Mike, is that It's like a plinko where you put the plinko down and you hope it lands on the 100, so you win the $100. It's like, but by doing, I think, these actions that move this way, instead of having one plinko to go down to that one result, which is $100, which we could say is interstellar travel. Now, instead of one, you get 30 plinkos to drop down. Does that mean you're going to get the $100? No, there's probability. You don't know how it's going to work out.
Sure.
But now you have 30 versus one.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's the way I'd frame it in my mind.
I never once brought up doing and not doing.
What do you mean?
I brought up going down the wrong path for a long time or making the wrong decisions, even though we think they're right at the moment.
So let's back up just for 1 second on that. I know you said we talked for an hour, which I don't know if you want to end it, but there's a few things that I want to add. You said doing versus not doing, and then your concern is doing the wrong thing, right?
So those are two things that you brought up because you talked a little bit in a circle. You talked about just canceling NASA and that making us not go as far. But I never brought that up.
I was giving you a concrete. I said the path that I'm talking about, I think is pretty clear. You're saying we don't know if what we do here is going to be the right choice 300 years from now. We don't know what the path is from here to there. And I'm saying the path that I'm currently talking about, I think there are some current very strong things that we know will pan out in that way.
Yes, yeah, I don't know. We would need. I think we need a real expert to answer that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm not the person to talk about this. I'm daydreaming.
Something like that.
He thinks so. I don't know. I have no idea.
I think there are.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think there's enough smart people that can make educated guesses again, and that's why
that's my point.
So that's what I was going to say. That's what I hate about people that deny climate change or the potential impact. And again, arguing about what the impact is going to be. Sure. But then they'll bring up certain things where, scientists, a true scientist will never want to say definitively because you only have so much evidence, so you don't know, right? And that's what I'm saying. I think that this is a good idea because it'll lead this way. Do we know it's going to happen? No. The Plinko idea of the probability increasing, I think that is the case.
Yeah, but the Plinko increasing wasn't what I brought up. Again, because your example is doing and not doing. Yeah. Clearly, when you do, your Plinko goes up. Your probability goes up compared to not doing. But there's shades, right? There's shades and there's also paths in which we go. And my point was just that.
How to optimize it? You're right. I have no idea how to
that was my point.
Yeah.
That was my point.
But we have enough things that we're not doing that even before we get in that hypothetical, is this the right path? I'm like, there's a lot of things we're just not doing.
But we don't know. We don't always know the repercussions of everything we do. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that shouldn't stop us.
Maybe.
In a way.
I'm not saying that should stop us or not. I'm just saying that those things won't always pan out. And what if they're not panning out? And maybe we're not doing the right things.
What are the things that you think people should be doing?
There's a few. I honestly probably don't want to say on the podcast. What's that?
Keep that same energy. You gotta say it.
No.
Even if it's just small things.
No, there's a big one, I actually think, but I want to be more concrete in my thoughts on it because they're not fully formed. These are things I've been thinking about. So a good example, like climate change is something I feel comfortable saying. You know what I mean? I think investing in the sciences is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So you're talking about people donating money to sciences.
I don't think anyone...
Government. I think Connor's answers for what you think these answers are.
Yeah. I don't think anyone here is disagreeing at all.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Or even maybe in this state or this country that we should...
But the funding's not happening. So that's an example of one of those things that I was just mentioning where we talked about privacy and 97% of people agreeing with it, but it not being done, right? And that to me influencing then future thought, because if we as humanity want something positive to happen and it's not being happening, then we're kind of that collective helplessness that we're talking about before. Not to circle it back. Like I want go on with what you're saying, Connor. The question?
Private funding, though. Connor, are you saying private funding? Or are you talking about governmental funding? Because private funding, I think Connor's asking what you think individuals should do. Because government funding for these things would be great, but me donating $100 off each paycheck, which is what I could afford, won't allow us to do.
I think we all have more time than we know that we have. So we think like, oh man, I work like 40 hours a week. Like, what can I do or whatever? It's like, oh, this is going to cost me money. I'm worrying too much about rent. I'm like, no, there's simple things. Like if you're passionate about something, right? Find what your passion is that you think is something that can contribute to good. So it could be something as simple to me as fitness, right? So you like fitness, learn about fitness, help out about fitness, help people become fitter, lose weight. You volunteering your time. If you want an actionable thing of what most people can do, and that's something that I care about where I do volunteer for a few things. Volunteer either towards a cause you like or something that you do think helps out just humanity. If you like fucking film, Connor, the thing I would say for you, what can you do is then the same thing you're currently trying to do, which is learn about film, read that Kubrick book, get in a society that talks about it, start contributing, maybe volunteer. If you have in Toronto, we have that TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival, volunteer that. the best thing that we can do that's free is lend our time. And I think we all have more time than we think. So film's an example, fitness is an example where it's harder to see how it percolates up, but I do think it contributes. If you want to go another way.
No, I think it's easier. No, I think that's the easiest thing.
Easier to see? Like see how it helps?
Because you're helping. Yeah. Like you said, you're spending your time. What's hard to see is the percolation, but which again is conceptual. But I think it's for people to spend their time or even spend their money. I think is more direct, and that's what I'm talking about. That I agree, society should try to do smaller things to be good, and that's where I was making arguments earlier about that chain. Things like that, people can't concept. I can't help NASA. NASA's smarter than me. They've studied that for 20 years.
I should have worded that better. I hear what you're saying.
We started at application. That's what I'm saying. For an hour, we started at application.
I started out being bummed out that we couldn't train, so I'm like, yeah, I'll just mention this, and then we went off. I'm like, all right,
you just went off skipping rather than walking because we started with application and being a good human and some morals and how to apply those things to then things that are outside of what the normal person can do. It's different spending your time at a church and helping people with some food or going to a shelter and trying to help some things out, or even more basic, helping someone be healthier or happier human, hoping to entertain people, hoping to train a culture with some movies or something like that, to percolating all the way up, right?
Yeah.
The daily applications of recycle, great. The daily applications of spending a little time bettering yourself to hopefully better other people, right? The reading, the taking care of yourself before you can take care of others type of thing, great.
Yeah.
The concept of percolating all the way up, I think is
the easy link for that, Mike.
But that's not applicable.
The easy link to me, and I know you'll talk about then the length of time, but it's actually necessary for the future survival, because we're talking about the future survival of humanity, and then in the past we're talking about the survival of early human, right? So you have the immediate danger of the tiger. So now our tiger has just morphed into something else, and so things have changed. Just like how we derive food, how we work, how we socialize, everything has changed over time. I think the necessity of things has changed. So there's a necessity and there's a danger, and it's just changed in terms of the timeline of when it'll happen, what will happen, and who will happen to.
But I mean, that's where we started, right?
So I could draw that all.
The concept of the concept of our enemy, all right? Maybe it's climate change now compared to a tiger. The concept is a lot more out there now, and that's why I think as a society, and we have a bigger society.
I agree with you that it's harder for humans to conceptualize things that don't immediately affect them, and I think that's personally one of our potential problems as humans.
Maybe, but that's also just the hands we're dealt right now. Like, I think it's a little bit human nature to deal with what's in front of us. A tiger's claws, and me last week seeing the tiger kill Connor. Now I understand that the tiger's dangerous, rather than the climate change or aliens coming or whatever concept
something
out there.
In the water turning the frickin' frogs gay, as Alex Jones said.
Yeah, it's a lot more difficult for me, and our society is so much more intertwined, that our tribe is so large because of internet and because of even just modern society, that for us to weave together for that is a much, much deeper, larger problem.
What I'm taking away from you, Omar, is that you want people to care more about the future.
I guess I'm trying to get that takeaway.
Just of their fellow human now, and that will percolate towards
what
the
about
future.
A person that's never really felt connected in society?
I would say that's totally normal. I would say the way that in a lot of ways the society is currently set up, it leads to apathy. I think there's certain things about the internet that leads to having an apathetic stance. And so I can understand that. And that's why the original point that I was bringing up is that society is not set up in the best interest of humans. It's not optimized for humans to help each other.
Yeah, we don't have community.
Whereas in times past, it was. And that actually was the kernel of what we're talking about then.
Do you think it was actually set up in times past, or it was forced by technology and forced by circumstance? Well, like our Neanderthal, right? Neanderthal, the 10 of us have to live together because we have nobody else. And if I live on my own, I die. Right? So 10 of us got together because we can build huts faster when the storm's flying in, and we can hunt a little bit better.
These are your boys.
Yeah, you have no other option, right?
Yeah.
Where because of technology, because of government, because obviously
a lot of factors.
4,000 years of history. Now we're built that I'm in this house, you're in that house. We have the internet, which is convenient. We built technology for convenience. Right? Everything most humans do, because we're lazy by nature, is convenience and safety.
If you don't die, or if you die, doesn't really affect me.
Well, I think it's beyond that now. Where
like a physical,
for sure,
survival level.
For sure, but it's bigger than that now, because I can survive. Again, we don't have to worry about food. We don't have to worry about shelter. Those things are fairly easy to come by, and obviously that's in a modern Western world, not always easy everywhere. But yeah, we have the convenience of the internet. We have all these things. And so technology has forced our society into some of these things because we're lazy and convenient, which means that the depths of human, the shit of human is our laziness. The death of human is caused by laziness.
I just said we should help each other more. I mean, I think we agree with each other more than we probably realize about these topics.
I don't disagree on anything.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is take all your concepts and make them apply, because you went from application to concept to application to concept, and I'm trying to tie it together is all I'm doing. I don't think I've made one single goddamn opinion.
Yeah.
I don't really.
Was there a question that you were going to ask? Because you said something. Oh, okay.
No. There's no concept. All I'm saying is that technology has driven our society to now, and that's what's made it, I think, more difficult for us to have those human interactions, which I think is what you're talking about. For us to care about another human, you need human interaction. No. It's much more difficult to care about a human, much like caring about...
it's more difficult now to care about a stranger than it would have been.
Or not even a stranger.
You would know people, they're not strangers.
I think even the people that you consider friends, it's harder to care about now than it was 3,000 years ago, because 3,000 years ago we're worrying about each other's safety, our own kids, because we're in a 10-man.
The dangers are more immediate and obvious to us. I agree with that.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm saying with the concept of even the climate now. If we can't even care about our neighbor because we don't even know her name, because all she does is mow my lawn or pick my weeds or throw her.
I completely agree.
Yeah, so then it's much more difficult to care about that homeless guy even, and then it's even more difficult to care about the concept, whether true or not. It's still kind of a concept of climate change.
And that's I want to get back to your apathy point, because I think it's a very good point. I think a documentary for anyone interested that's very good is something called Citizen Jane, where we talk about urban planning and the way that it fractures communities and in the way that we talk. A very easy one for me to think about and to talk about. There's actually someone in Toronto. He's doing a thing called defencing, where he's trying, it's a free service where you could call him up and he'll eliminate the fence between you and your neighbor. Right. Yeah. And what does that mean? Like, why do you have a
communal
fence?
Space.
It's a communal space. You have a house. He or she has a house. Instead, it's like, if you want to visit that person, well, there's a fence here. You have to walk all the way around. We're creating them barriers. So I think removing some of those barriers that make it easier for humans to be humans. Yeah. And the best part is something that would be very necessary. And that's why
I think it's a fine line, though, because there still are dangers. Like, you know, there's dangers and there's reasons we built fences in the first place. Whenever fences were invented 300 years, 800 years ago, there's a reason there's walls in them, because there's some bad motherfucker that's trying to come kill me. I'm going to go build a moat and get a bridge. So it is a fine line. And again, the concept of that's great. But so that's kind of, what will happen with that? We'll do anything. Who knows?
Yeah, I think there are certain things. I understand what you're saying where, 3,000 years ago, the level of uncertainty, the amount of protection that you need would be so much higher.
And it's immediate.
First now, immediate. Some of those things, I do think that we can quantify them when we talk about like the defencing concept or having park spaces, so community spaces in cities are a positive thing, right?
Yeah, but so that's hard too, because society, there are a lot of bad eggs, like, so there's a lot of parks in the neighborhoods I grew up in, but there's like 90% of them my parents wouldn't bring me to because there's drugs and there's stuff going on. So
there's so many variables.
Yeah, you can't build community there either,
Yeah, but that's not to say that the park itself is inherently bad.
No, of course not.
It's what the individuals do.
What I'm saying is the park isn't the answer.
Yeah, I look at things, well, I think it's part of the answer, because I think everything, it could be a neutral net positive. So what I mean, at the worst, it's neutral, so it doesn't do anything to harm you. At the best, it is doing something that contributes something positively to the community. People getting together.
I would need stats, but I think you could. I think you could argue that it could be a net negative if you're building communal spaces for things like drugs or violence or right.
But they'll find drugs. They'll do it anywhere.
Yeah, but if you're building a communal space for it, then it's more centralized.
But a communal space would be public. That's not where like the drugs would be done in the towers or anything like that. Like so, they would be done in private spaces.
Yeah. So now you have larger groups because it's communal. Is my point.
Larger groups are what?
People meeting together in a centralized. So you're just
picturing like a park where people are just like all giving.
Yeah.
Would that not be easier for the police then to monitor it if everyone's centralized in one place?
No, look at Skid Row. If it was that easy, what are we going to do with those people? It's not that easy.
Oh, well, so I think actually that's planned. So as an idea in Toronto, there's actually an area called Moss Park where I think the police purposely allow a lot of drug activity to happen so they can monitor it and try and figure out who are the dealers. We talk about percolating, who are the suppliers then. So ways to see, because if you're just, cutting out the symptoms, so you see like a drug dealer on the street, arrest him. It's like, well, he's low level on the chain. How any good police work is done is they try and figure out the structure of it.
Sure.
And so I think
I'm just saying I can't. I don't think I can guarantee an answer to
the only public. I think it's neutral positive. I think. Yeah,
okay.
I think
what I was trying to say is I don't think we can guarantee taking down a fence will make you friends with your neighbors or be communal. No. And I don't think because people.
So that's why I say, Mike, neutral positive. At the least, you might not be a friend. At the most, you'll be a friend. It's not going to make you hate the other person. I think that's such a hypothetically improbable scenario to me.
No, what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to say is that if you take down the fence, I don't think it guarantees anything negative, positive, or neutral. I think it could potentially be negative. If we have no fences, then security goes down. And like I said, hundreds of years ago, we built a fence for security for a reason. There was reasons about that. And then same with the parks. I think that I can't because I don't have stats or anything. But I think it's definitely possible that there's negatives.
That's why the documentary Citizen Jane is great. I was going to say that I think keeping some of those old archaic notions of our property and the fence into the 21st century they're antiquated in ways they could be harmful towards us communicating as humans. That's what we're talking about.
I think there's two different types of thought process between you and I. I don't know about Mike, but like you're very
fat. I understand.
No, you're hoping for the best.
As a whole, like as a human community, where like me, I'm like I've never really felt like I'm a part of. Like, let's say all these different communities.
Yeah, you don't rep like California. Yeah. You don't rep. Yeah.
So I've always felt like the best community I have is like my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I do everything I can to make my friends' lives better. And then that's just going to ripple down to the nth degree.
That's not bad.
Because they're going to, hopefully, they see that what I do for my friends and my people or whatever is going to help them to do that for their own circle, which like I'm going to be a part of. And then that goes on to the outside of their circle or whatever, where you're like, that's what, I don't know a better way to say this, but very bottom up. So like,
and I'm thinking top down. You're thinking top down. And so the reason I say that without like, I don't want to go into, like I said, personal details because I hate those motherfuckers when they talk about like charity or this and that. Mm-hmm. I would say I actually shared very similar sentiments to you, like growing up, in my youth. But being exposed, I'd say, to different communities and getting outside of my comfort zone because I felt, some of that apathy. I actually could totally relate to that. But my perspective has changed over time through numerous interactions. Volunteering would be one of the big ones. People that you wouldn't normally interact with, where you see someone walking down the street, you're like, once again, maybe that person's like homeless. I shouldn't interact. Like they want money. Oh, I bet they want money for drugs or whatever. Where you think like whatever happens to that person is justified. Me being exposed to people outside of my normal network, because I think we all have our own inherent bias. We seek out friends that are maybe similar to us, that have similar mindset or things that we like. Well, just seeing how the other half lives, so to speak, just in the world in general has made me appreciate the greater community as a whole and see kind of how some of those threads work, where you help someone out, someone's feeling destitute, someone's out on the street, you give them a place to stay, you give them some food, you help them feel like a human again. Their sense of self-esteem goes up. Now they start viewing the street not as their final resting place where they're going to die in OD. Now they want to re-enter society. Now they want to get a job. Now they want to live again. And now they feel like they're being treated like a human being. And so I've seen that change from someone feeling lost, seeing someone being lost, and then them becoming a quote unquote productive member of society. And so from that.
You say that reluctantly though.
What do you mean?
The quote unquote productive.
No, how we define productive. Because I think productive, just someone having a job doesn't mean that you're a good person.
Or productive.
Or productive for sure. Shit. So, but that's what people say. Like they'll say about homeless, they need to be productive members of society. I'm like, well, they need to buy into society, right? And I think the way we could set that up again is making them feel more human, and because there are some things like we talk about that just world fallacy where a lot of people think it's all just supposed to work out. It's like, well, if we lend that helping hand, I think it comes back to us tenfold. Is what my experience in ways has been. And not always. It's not saying like, hey, man, like, oh, yeah, like you need help. Yeah, let me help you. And it all works out. It's like, like the fentanyl crisis that's currently happening in Toronto. I think it's also happening all over North America. I'm not trying to speak out of my ass. I've already spoken enough out of my ass. But sometimes it doesn't work out. So not everything that you do is going to come back. But enough times I've seen where as a whole, because I think about things as a whole, not one instance, right? It's not just inductive. Like I did this one time and it bit me in the ass. I'm never volunteering again.
Yeah, and it's not one for one either.
Yeah, it's not one for one.
Even though I do still think in the justified. I do think in karma still, but I don't think it's 1-to-1.
Yeah, like you do something and then it's going to come back as something good. It's like, yeah, it might bite you in the ass.
But if I do 100 things, hopefully one good thing heads my way.
So that changed my perspective, Connor, because I could tell you that there's large components of society that I felt I didn't fit into. You know, like just growing up, and just that, like, why give a fuck? And you see, like, that's why I joke, and I like joke when I say about like corporate capitalism, all these things. I think there are some certain things in society that make us feel just less human or less connected, and those are the barriers that I'd want to eliminate. And I could feel it in myself, my perspective changing, and how one thing directly impacts the other. That's what I'd say. So I hear you. Yeah.
Do you hear him?
I hear you.
Do you see me, Avatar style?
I see you.
Taruk Makdao.
Yeah, well, that's one of my favorite, some of my favorite works of all time, and I have that cyberpunk. Like I do identify with that punk philosophy that's called straight edge. And straight edge, like you come up with an ethos, things that you follow, so you don't smoke, you don't this, you don't that, right? Or when we talk about cyberpunk, being low to the ground, I think you see how people really operate, and you see humanity as a whole, right? It's not just like this perfect sheen, like, oh, people do good and everything works out, or the bad people are bad people. Things are a lot more gray. And so some of my favorite works, Dostoevsky, I'm a huge fan of. His sentiment at the end with Alyosha in the book Brothers Karamazov is, in the end, we're all responsible for one another. Is what he puts forth, which is a very beautiful concept. And it deals with a lot of Orthodox Christianity, all his works, but like that one in particular, just a beautiful sentiment. The same idea with Akira, the Japanese manga. It's something similar where they deal with these profound concepts, but in a way make it applicable. When you read it, you're like, wow, okay, that makes sense. Or a great one, you've seen Rashomon? Okay, the character side. That's like the one that a lot of people in the West like, but it's like an easy one-to-one of like different things and a whole story going on. But that's why they are my favorite works, because I am hopeful.
I think we're all.
A new hope. I don't know.
A new hope. There you go. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I feel it, man. I feel it. So that's the whole ramble. You know, I had multiple topics to talk about today, but we went in it. You know, why not?
Ladies and gentlemen, get involved. Mama's Boys Podcast on Instagram. We'll post some crazy picture for this episode. Comment below what you guys think. We'd love to hear whatever the hell's going on in your fat heads.
Yeah, on YouTube, comment below. And like I said, I totally understand some of the notions. Like, and that's why when you ask me what are some of those things that I'd recommend, obviously besides climate change, I'm like, some of these ideas are definitely not fully formed, but I see some of the lines, is what I'd say personally. I feel that's all. So you could totally disagree. Just like when we talked about that Colin Kaepernick thing, where it's like, yeah, if you disagree with him, it's all good, bro. That's dialogue's important. And I think that's the power of I think that's one of the biggest powers of a podcast. You could be exposed to different perspectives. And I think that's also maybe why someone like Joe Rogan has become so popular is, you know, you think he has a core audience, but he'll bring on a guest that's, you know, I hate always politics because like this person's on the left, this person's on the right, but you have someone that's far on the right and they'll share some views. You have someone far on the left and they'll share their views. And you're like, wow, like these are all these different perspectives that people are having, right? It's not one way. And so dialogue, I think it's important.
I agree. And just listening to different sides, which is lost in this world, you know, people just write off whatever news channel, whatever radio host, just because of their views. But if you're just stuck in your own fucking vacuum, you're never going to be exposed to anything.
Never going to be a vacuum cleaner.
Well, you just can't create your own thoughts when you're stuck in a vacuum. You have to see both sides, at least listen to both sides before you can even give your own. So,
what?
If you only surround yourself with people like you,
but what
same
I'd say,
ethnicity, same
thought process. But I think surrounding yourself with someone is slightly different because you are comfortable, obviously, with someone's more similar. But if you're only reading, listening to, watching things of your own thought, which I think is
bad self.
Well, I think that's the most common thing in the world right now.
Let me ask you this:
people just write them off before they even heard them because they're like, "Oh, that guy, I've heard this guy's against abortion, so I'm not even going to listen to him." Rather than like listening to him, and sure, maybe you don't agree with him on abortion, but maybe you agree with him with economics, or maybe you agree with him with recycling, or who knows what the fuck topics.
Yeah, that's a whole. I'd love to get into it because there's actually a big question I want to ask you, but we'll leave that for another podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, give us a rating and review. Go follow Connor. He doesn't have a single picture up on Instagram, but he wants your follow. goes badly.
Connor O'Neill.
Yep. Soon to be rebranded is coming. Again, rating and review on iTunes. We appreciate you guys. Mama's Boys every Tuesday and Friday.